Wow. Senior twos, we only have 5 months left. Senior ones, while you may have a bit longer, your time here may be over before you know it. Whether you came in grade 7, 9, or more recently joined the Appleby community, I know I speak for everyone when I say the years have truly flown by. We've really gone through some crazy years, from the stanky leg and shmoney dance in 2013 to 2017, where you can regularly spot me dropping and hitting them folks as I walk to my classes. It's a shame that our time at Appleby is coming to an end. I certainly do not want this year to end so quickly. But before we know it, we will all be moving on to bigger and better things. The class of 2017 has achieved some remarkable feats as a group. Over the past years, we've excelled academically, athletically, through service, and developed our many unique skills and talents. Ultimately, we all came to Appleby with similar goals and expectations: to receive an exceptional, well-rounded education, develop our social and leadership skills, and learn to express ourselves through arts, services, and athletics. And as Appleby students, we constantly are measured by our ability to reach lofty expectations. Many of the expectations placed on us are external, from parents, for example. For me, the expectation from mom and dad was that by the end of senior 2, I'd be accepted into a top-level university, bottom line. The stress of knowing both my parents and siblings had attended Ivy League universities loomed over my head every day. This meant that anything less than perfect on report cards was unsatisfactory. And while my marks were never near perfect, I put in a substantial amount of time to please my parents. Yet, every time marks were released, I would ask my parents what they thought, and I was usually greeted with a, "They're great, but you can do better," or, "Are you even top of your class?" And to this I would respond, "No, how can I be top when Will Yates is in my class?" While this stress to constantly perform at such a high level was very taxing, my father explained, "If I didn't have my foot on your neck all the time, you would slack off." And I'm finally realizing how true that statement is. He has eased up a bit on me since I was accepted into university in December. And I'm really afraid for his reaction when he watches this speech on YouTube. But Dad, senioritis is hitting me really hard. I hope he will be okay with me switching calculus to gym, but I guess I'll find out soon enough. Undoubtedly, a few of my favorite moments at Appleby would have to be my selection as polls prefect and getting to spend 3 years playing my favorite sport under the tactical genius Tosh McFarlane. I'll never forget his unorthodox drills, being constantly referred to as a youngster, and most importantly, his unmistakable Scottish accent. I'll never forget his famous advice: "Oliver, you're a good player, but not that good." Mr. McFarlane, or Toshi, always expected the best from me. And like my father, if he always told me I was doing great, I would think I could go past the entire opposition team on my own. Not to say I didn't try this at least once a game. I always wanted to be the best on the field, and his friendly reminders that I was far from it made me push myself farther each and every game. As for my selection as polls prefect, I was never destined to be a prefect, and I definitely had a bit of a rocky start to Appleby life. I really did not like being here. As with many international students, I missed my family, and my only real friend was probably Damola. And while Damola is a great friend to have, it's always good to have more than one. I was usually an outgoing, unreserved person, but I found myself to be quiet and conceited. Eventually, I decided having no friends, I mean one friend, wasn't great, and I made a promise to be as talkative and outgoing as possible. Unsurprisingly, people did open up to me, and I was able to find my niche. Also, my disciplinary record was definitely not prefect-like over my 4 years. I've certainly had my fair share of run lists, IT infractions, and even one weekend gating. I know, it sounds like I'm a real rebel. I remember the day I was gated as if it happened yesterday. It was a cold Monday morning in grade 9. I had just returned from my second period gym class, and I should have been heading to all-school assembly. Instead, I decided my time was more valuable. I sat in my room, in my shorts, and put my feet up on my desk and began binge watching some YouTube videos. A few minutes passed, and I glanced over my shoulder to see Mr. Lindsay, the poles on at the time, staring at me. I immediately jumped out of my chair, speechless. He said, "Dags, what are you doing? Why aren't you in all-school assembly?" Shocked, I said the first thing that came to mind. Why aren't you in all-school assembly, Mr. Lindsay?" It's hard to argue with that gating. Honestly, it is unlikely I would have even considered applying for a prefect role had my brother, Alex, not been the polls prefect in his senior year. But as siblings go, I just showed that I was capable of achieving everything he had. And with most things I commit to, I'm either all in or not interested at all. While it is an immense time commitment and amount of work, I couldn't be happier in the position and with the way the polls boys have bonded this year. I've always tried to create a fun and positive environment in the house. And whether or not I've done anything to contribute to their experiences, I know the vast majority of polls boys prefer living in our house as opposed to, for example, Collie. It always brings a smile to my face to hear Will Jelinek tell me how much he wished he was in polls. While my aforementioned achievements and endeavors were all, in my opinion, largely resulted from others' expectations of myself, I do, of course, have my own expectations for myself, my peers, and my friends. One of my personal endeavors during my time over at Appleby has been rugby. I'd never even considered playing the sport until grade 10, and I can say without a doubt, I was peer pressured into signing up. I was tall, lanky, and hand-eye coordination has never really been my thing. As one might expect, I had no idea what was going on those first few weeks. I'd run around like a madman and try and tackle anyone with the ball. But with every practice, my knowledge of the game grew, and before I knew it, I was a regular starter on the team. Unfortunately, before I knew it, I found out that tackling with my head first was a very quick way to get yourself a concussion. My concussion was indeed very serious, and I missed about 3 or 4 weeks of school. During that time, I forgot what year it was, how old I was, and also how to write June exams. Despite this, and my mother's concerns, I returned the next season to try for the varsity team. And through my own persistence and hard work, I proved my worth and found myself in the starting line again. I take great pride in knowing I played a meaningful role in bringing Appleby its first varsity rugby championship in nearly 30 years. As soon as I decided that rugby would be my co-curricular in the spring of grade 10, I set the expectation for myself that I would do everything to prove my dad was wrong and be committed to becoming as strong a player as possible. Also, as I'm sure they have for me, I have expectations for my friends and roommates. I had the expectation that my roommates would not steal from me. Yet, Matthew McMillan always finds a way to get half of my food into his stomach. As for my other roommate, Rory, I really wish he would stop claiming to self-clean or run faster at night. Also, I'm happy to know that these two are here to console me during my daily anger episode. This usually involves me yelling at my computer as I try to write an English essay or do my calculus homework. Thankfully, Rory is an English wizard, and man took calculus for 2 days. As for my friends, I have the expectation that they will support my interests and goals. At the moment, my interest happens to be spontaneous dancing, which can literally happen at any time. And while my friends have explained that I look like a complete fool when I do this, it makes me happy, and that is the only affirmation I need to continue doing it. If you were to take one thing away from my speech today, is that expectations are not meant to limit you or make you feel pressured, but act as a tool for helping you achieve your full potential. And while you could set low expectations for yourself and never be disappointed, set them higher than you can imagine and witness the remarkable things you can achieve. Our time at Appleby is winding down. Let's make the most of it and foster memories that will stay with us for years to come. Try out for that team, apply for that position, skip that assembly, just kidding, don't do that. Most importantly, find what interests you, excites you, and do everything you can to reach your full potential. Don't graduate and say, I wish I could have, or what if I had? Do what you have to do to become the best version of yourself. Be phenomenal or be forgotten. Please join me in singing hymn number 423.